There are some people out in these streets, plenty of guys more specifically, who will be matching with women on dating apps, sliding into DMs, maybe even approach her in a bar, who aren't looking for a serious relationship in the slightest. They're just looking for fun experiences. To which really, there isn't anything wrong with that. But you do want something more significant and you don't want to waste your time. So if you're dating a guy and you're not sure whether he's open to something serious with you or not, what should you look for? Well, here are 5 obvious signs that a guy you're dating is not looking for anything serious. First sign, he has a fear of commitment. There's a term we use here in London when a guy is getting married. It's called getting cuffed. And this is a term typically only said to the man, especially from his guy friends. Using the word cuff as a metaphor for when you get arrested. When police arrest you, they put handcuffs on you. Why? To restrict your movement, to restrict your freedom. When guys say to guys getting cuffed, it's him losing his freedom. Now, why is this something men would say to each other and not necessarily women? Well, the feminine seeks closeness, community, and intimacy. And so getting into a relationship, getting married, and swearing off all others serves the feminine imperative of seeking closeness and connection. However, the masculine seeks ambition, direction, freedom, keyword here being freedom. A man's freedom is restricted, and so getting into a monogamous relationship, getting married, doesn't necessarily serve the masculine's natural imperative for wanting freedom. Now, this isn't saying that men don't want relationships and commitment, but any man, especially a masculine man, he has to truly want it. Man has always wanted to explore, to venture beyond. That's why men of history, for better or for worse, have ventured out into the world and conquered other lands. Freedom of movement is very important to a man. And so with some men, there can be a fear of the lack of freedom he may have should he commit to a relationship. He may be willing to commit his time and attention, but women want more than just that. Men know this. There's also a sense of obligation and responsibility that men feel when they get into a relationship. And so he may be avoiding taking that responsibility, at least for the time being. Next sign he's not ready for a commitment is he is emotionally unavailable. We hear women all the time expressing that they end up dating men who are emotionally unavailable. And it's like, well, if you're emotionally unavailable, why are you out here in these streets meeting and dating women in the first place? It's a valid question, but the simple answer is, a man can still want to test drive a car even if he has no intention of buying it. He may very much still enjoy the ride, no pun intended. Now, as long as he's honest about this and doesn't intentionally deceive anyone, that's important and that's okay. But just because he's a good and honest man doesn't mean he's available further than the physical. So to avoid this, what are some things to look for? Well, if you're dating a man and you're wondering whether he's emotionally unavailable, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, does he prioritize spending time with me as much as I do with him? 2, do we talk about the future of this relationship? And 3, do I feel closer to him mentally and emotionally than I did, say, a month ago? If you answer no to 2 or more of these questions, he is very much not in a place emotionally to be into anything serious. Next sign he's not ready is he's never truly open about what he wants. When a guy can never actually say what he wants within a relationship, whether it's in the present moment or what he wants for the future, this is a crystal clear sign that he's not ready or likely unwilling to be exclusive. A common misconception that many women have about how men relate to relationships is that they think that they relate to them the same way women do. It's much more common that a woman entertains the idea of a relationship if there's a guy on the scene more so than men do. I mean, why wouldn't you? You get a companion, someone to talk to, someone to spend time on you, someone to spend attention on you, someone to spend money on you, someone willing to fight for you, maybe even take a bullet for you, someone to even take care of you wholeheartedly, financially. And if you strike gold, he's great in the bedroom. Because this is the most common dynamic in which how many women enter relationships, it's much easier to consider it as a for the time being relationship. A woman may not be sure for whether she could see herself marrying this man in the future, but she may still enter a relationship with him should he bring many of these benefits. Whereas how men generally relate to entering a relationship is very different. The best way I can describe how men see it for them, that makes it very easy to understand, is that for men, getting into a relationship is like getting a dog. You love the dog, Adore the dog. It brings you joy, gives you affection. You can play with the dog, bring it around your family and friends. You can have fun with the dog. But with that, you have to constantly schedule time to take the dog out. When you do go out, you're responsible for the well-being and safety of the dog. The dog requires a lot of attention, sometimes more attention than you would want to give. The dog is costly with taking it to the vet, buying gifts and toys for it to play with. You have to consider the dog in almost every decision you make. You also are almost exclusively, maybe unjustifiably so, are held responsible for the happiness and contentment of the dog. And here's the thing, the dog may seriously love you and give you a lot of affection, but your happiness and contentment is never its primary focus. The dog looks to you to bring it a life, an environment and space where it can enjoy itself. This is exactly how men see entering a relationship. There's a lot of maintenance he knows he has to bring mentally, emotionally, and very much financially to keep the relationship afloat. Now you may be thinking, that's not fair, Kit. I do care and would care about my man's happiness. I'm not saying a woman doesn't care, but typically, when is it the focus for her in the relationship? Because if we're being honest, we hear all the time of men taking her places and buying her things to make her happy. And while I'm not saying women don't typically do that in a relationship, it's not the common narrative we hear as much. We very seldomly hear that, oh, she's not doing enough to make him happy. And for what I can see, there's two reasons for this. One, men in general have less requirements to being fulfilled in a relationship compared to women. And two, there's an expectation on a man to be bringing value to her life. Otherwise, why would she be with him, right? So understanding this is the reality for many men entering a relationship, it's very much like getting a dog for you. And so with that, he has to truly want it. Next sign a guy isn't ready is the avoidance of relationship discussions, i.e., he avoids discussing about having a serious relationship or having one with you. This is, I dare say, the most subtle way a guy is showing a lack of interest in something serious. The main reason a guy who's not ready will be wanting to avoid these kind of topics is because it forces him to disclose that he doesn't want one if he isn't ready. It's very easy for a woman to be dating a guy, and because in her head things are going well in terms of spending fun time together, somewhat regular communication, etc., she assumes that he's looking for the same thing she is. When in actual fact, that topic hasn't even been talked about, let alone approached. And for men who are experienced with women, they know this. They know that most women likely make this assumption. And so it's really easy to have plausible deniability on his part when it gets to the point that she wants to be exclusive. And he's like, hey, I never said I was looking for a serious relationship. And while this is a poor form in a way to date on his part, it's also not his fault or responsibility that she may have made that assumption. So to ensure you don't fall into this trap, it's important and healthy to touch on what you are looking for and whether it aligns with him. This doesn't have to be on the first date, but definitely early on. The next sign, which can be hard to tell because it can depend on circumstance, but he's not really there for you. This is somewhat circumstantial because you can only really tell in a situation where you do need him for something, where him being there for you for something important, like going to a medical appointment you're a bit nervous about, coming to an event that you're hosting, or even just having a phone call with you when you're upset and you just need someone to talk to. If a guy is not really there for you when you need him the most, he may only be open to popping in and out of your life when it's most convenient for him. When a guy is serious, he'll want to be there for you because he'll want to show you that you can depend on him when it counts. Not to mention, he'll also be wanting you to be there for him when he needs your support as well. So just be cautious of a guy running you high and dry on his terms. Now, if you're wondering whether a guy is taking you seriously and to date him in a way that he is, then get in my Claim Your Man program below where I show you how to do just that. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, keep it slick.